Continuing now with Psalm 141, a psalm of David. I call you, O Lord, hasten to me. Give ear to my cry when I call you. Take my prayer as an offering of incense, my upraised hands as an evening sacrifice. O Lord, set a guard over my mouth, a watch at the door of my lips. Let my mind not turn to an evil thing, to practice deeds of wickedness with men who are evildoers. Let me not feast on their dainties. Let the righteous man strike me in loyalty. Let him reprove me. Let my head not refuse such choice oil. My prayers are still against their evil deeds. May their judges slip on the rock. But let my words be heard, for they are sweet. As when the earth is cleft and broken up, our bones are scattered at the mouth of Sheol. My eyes are fixed upon you, O Lord my God. I seek refuge in you. Do not put me in jeopardy. Keep me from the trap laid for me and from the snares of evildoers. Let the wicked fall into their nets when I alone come through. In this project, as I have journeyed through the Psalms, through these videos, with my own reflections and comments, I have tried to find eternal meaning and relevance to daily life in our Psalms, whether it's matters of faith, whether it's matters having to do with living in society in the company of other people, and even sometimes with political implications. This psalm in particular has relevance to our lives and our world today as citizens of the United States of America. When the psalmist, referring to wicked people in the previous Psalm 141, and tying their wickedness in with evil tongue, with slander, and with wicked devisings and schemes, plots, in order to harm innocent people. And now the psalmist is shifting the focus here, and he is talking about, once again, those wicked people and the fact that they have the ability to entice and ensnare him. And he prays to God for the strength to withstand and to avoid being ensnared in this way. But the reference to judges actually ties in very sharply with some things that are going on today in the life of our country. Verses 6 and 7, according to our translation, are uncertain in their meaning. And the Hebrew is somewhat strange and convoluted, but the translation in verse 6 says, may their judges, namely the judges of the evil, of the wicked, slip on the rock, but let my words be heard, for they are sweet. Now, who are these judges? Well, in the context of biblical Israel, and especially if this psalm is connected to King David did not write it, but the author of the psalm is attributing it to King David. And in that historical context, we recall that just before the period of the kings, that is, beginning with King Saul and then followed by David, we had the period of the judges, in Hebrew, shoftim. And some of those judges included Samson, Deborah, Jephthah, or Yiftach in Hebrew, Gideon, and others. They were not, perhaps with the exception of Deborah, the others were not necessarily judges in a legal sense, but they were leaders of the people in a military sense. They were captains and generals who led the Israelites in battle and prevailed against their Canaanite enemies. So the word judges had that meaning in those days, but it also had the other meaning as well, as embodied in Deborah, who was a military leader and also a judge who adjudicated and heard legal cases from the people. And so if we were to look at judges in this verse in the legal sense and not the military, heroic kind of sense, we immediately think about what has been going on in our country with the appointment of a new Supreme Court justice literally days before a presidential election. Whereas 4 years ago, the appointment of a judge by the Obama administration was held up and rejected by the Senate because, or under the pretense or idea that a justice should not be appointed to the Supreme Court in the last year of a president's term. But that idea was cast aside conveniently during this period of time so that the current administration would have the opportunity to appoint a new Supreme Court justice in the wake of the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Our greatest fear, and that fear should come from all sides of the political spectrum in our country, whether liberal, whether conservative, middle of the road, makes no difference. Our greatest concern ought to be when the judicial system of our country is held under the influence and the thumb of either of the other branches of government, the executive or the legislative. The judicial branch of our country is meant to be and constitutionally supposed to be independent. And we become scared and afraid when those who are in power and whose intent is to continue to amass more power, not only hold on to the power, but gain more. And when that happens, the lines and boundaries between the different branches of government become blurred, and our democracy is imperiled. And so, those who plot and scheme in our land today, as I mentioned in the last psalm, out of a narcissistic need to become ever more powerful and to be able to influence the lives of those who are less powerful, of those who are vulnerable. When this sort of thing happens, and when they appoint judges and influence judges and allow law and the rule of law to be hampered and shadowed by their own political agenda, then we are in great danger. But the psalmist brings in, I think, a solution and an antidote. When the psalmist admits and asks God to set a guard over my mouth, a watch at the door of my lips, let my mind not turn to an evil thing, to practice deeds of wickedness with men who are evildoers. In other words, the psalmist admits that he is as vulnerable to negative and harmful influences by evil people as anyone else. We are all vulnerable. We are all susceptible. Many of us, if not all of us, have that kind of narcissistic streak and the wish to influence other people, to manipulate and control them. And so, lest we pin all of the blame on those who are already in power and who want more power, let us also remember that we have some of those same tendencies and are equally vulnerable. And therefore, as the psalmist says, we turn to God in prayer and with the hope that we can be kept safe and impervious from all of those harmful and negative influences. Our job, our role in this life is not to lord it over other people, to manipulate and control other people who are more vulnerable than we are, but rather our job in life is to do good, to live righteously, and to do service for God and our fellow human beings. Thank you.